Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephanie Wolf, and I am the Membership Relations Coordinator at Population Connection. Thanks again for tuning in for this important discussion as we come together to mark International Women's Day. This year's theme is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. I think it's a great theme, one we live by here at Pop Connect every day of the year. And one of the ways we do so is through our Global Partner Program, where we provide grants to organizations around the world working on initiatives in their community that improve the health and well-being of girls and the environment. Now, today we're joined by our global partner, Hope for Kenya Slum Adolescent Initiative, and we'll hear from founder Melvine Ouyo. Melvine is a health policy expert and reproductive rights activist. She holds a BS in nursing from Great Lakes University, a master's degree in public health with a focus in population and reproductive health, and an MPA from Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Melvine also serves on Population Connection's Board of Directors. Now, if you have any speaker questions for our speaker, please drop them in the Q&A box that's found at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our very best to get those answered during the Q&A session that is facilitated by our senior analyst, Hannah Evans. And then for any questions we don't have time to answer live, we will provide written answers along with a recording of this presentation, the presentation slides, and access to the chat box discussion. All right, now that's it for me. I will go ahead and send it over to you, Melvine.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone joining us. My name is Melvine Ouyo. Thank you, Stephanie, for that extensive introduction. I don't think I will repeat that. I want to start by saying Happy Women's History Month to those celebrating in the US. And happy International Women's Day to our sisters around the world. It is indeed a great day to celebrate, or month to celebrate and recognize all that women have achieved, all the progress, all the investment that women have been able to achieve, and more so in terms of gender equality and women empowerment. On this day, we actually celebrate the social, economic, cultural, and political achievement of women across the world. And that reminds me how much I have come. So wherever you are listening in from, please tell yourself you are valued. You are a woman of substance. Because I believe every woman is a woman of substance, depending on how you identify yourself. But I just want to say it's a great moment to celebrate women's achievement. On this day again, as we celebrate all the progress, all the investment, and all the achievement that women have attained, we also want to renew our commitments to supporting women empowerment and to supporting women across the world so we can invest more in women. And so the theme of this year's International Women's Day, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. I can't wait to see a world where women will be equally empowered as their counterparts, the men. This day, actually, as we celebrate this day, I want to say Hope for Kenya Slum Adolescent Initiative is actually an initiative of a woman inspired by the empowerment and the work and the commitment and the resources that were given to her growing up and even as an adult to become what she is today. And that is Melvine, the founder and a current executive director of Hope for Kenya Slum Adolescent Initiative. I started the initiative from an inspiration and understanding of the systemic barriers to girls and women, specifically as linked to limited access by women to quality education, supportive networks, financial resources, and basic human rights. So basically, growing up, I witnessed firsthand how women struggle because of limited resources, lack of education, and all the other things that I have mentioned, and how many women in my community and actually in Africa have been systematically had barriers to access to these privileges. And that is the motivation or inspiration for me that motivates me to do what I do. So as we look at, as we celebrate this year's International Women's Day, I just want us to also remember that even in the most of, close to I think 17 of the SDGs really apply or rather relate to women's issues. And so as we focus today, I think we can also remember and reflect on the SDG number 5, which basically has so many indicators around gender equality and the status of women. And we cannot forget to continuously remind ourselves that as we work to ensure gender equality, we must remember to end all forms of discrimination against women and girls everywhere in the world. Remember to eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls. Eliminate all harmful practices that includes female genital mutilation, forced and early marriages. Recognizing women and the values of women is really key as we celebrate this day. It's also important that we ensure that we remember to involve women fully and effectively in everything and every opportunity that there'll be. So today, I'm honored really to share what we do at Hope for Kenya Slum Adolescent Initiative. So Stephanie, if you just go to the next slide, I'll pick it up from there. Yes, so as we celebrate this day, it's really important to reflect, showcase, celebrate investment and progress on gender equality and women empowerment, celebrating socioeconomic, cultural, and political achievements. And one thing that really inspires and motivates most women is even the current US vice president, who is also a woman. And we've also had other women presidents across the world. So really an inspiration that we really need to aspire and celebrate. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's also a moment to renew commitments, especially from key stakeholders, wherever they are, our legislatures, renew commitments to supporting and for the agency to support women empowerment globally for gender equality. And then reflecting on specifically the SDG number 5, which I have mentioned, and sadly, today, women are still facing lots of discriminations, lots of gender-based violence, including sexual and reproductive violence in their spaces. For instance, in Kenya, I think since the year began, we've had more than 6 femicide cases where women are just killed in hotel rooms or in their homes and everywhere else. And this is basically something that everyone else is fighting, but it's just unfortunate that we still see women going through this kind of violence. I will say, I think last year, Kenya had the highest rates of gender-based violence. And this was, of course, attributed to the high cost of living. And I guess people are just so stressed up since post-corona. So people are just struggling. We know how the economies are doing, so not really good. And that also impacts on households. And it has led to very high rates of violence in the homes. So, but then it is a moment that as we celebrate this day, we remember to keep fighting against all these harmful practices. Next slide. Yeah, so this basically, I just brought here, or I'm just sharing a photo or the picture of Kenya as a country, and specifically Nairobi. And when you look at Nairobi, you see close to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, close to 10 slums, 10 informal settings around Nairobi city center. So basically, I'm projecting this just so you understand why, or my inspiration really to work with the women and girls in the informal settings. Because this is because most of our urban areas really have slums within them, and unfortunately, close to 60% of our urban populations are slum dwellers. So really, the reason why I decided to work with the people in the informal, women and girls in the informal settings. And if you go to the next slide, Stephanie, I just projected a few reasons why again, because women and girls living in the informal settlements bear the brunt of all forms of gender inequalities. Call it every other thing I have mentioned earlier: gender-based violence, sexual violence, physical violence, forced marriages, early pregnancies, or rather teenage pregnancies, and all those things are happening. Femicide are happening in the informal settings. And close to 85% to date of women and girls in Kenya, in Kenya's informal settings, still experience gender-based violence, which is really huge on women, and it's actually leading to femicide and cases that we are reported of high teenage pregnancies, early births, and of course that leads to high maternal mortalities and high neonatal mortality. So really, whatever comes with all this that women are going through is really huge and impacts negatively on their health, on their economic empowerment and all that. I also want to mention that, like in Kenya normally, and I guess this is happening everywhere else, wherever there is, like say, post-election violence, these women in the informal settings are the most that are impacted negatively. They will go through all sorts of abuse, as well as like police brutality and killings. And it's really the reason I chose to work with women and girls in the slums, just so to empower them, and in the hope that one day they'll get out of the slums because they'll be socially, economically empowered to live elsewhere else, not necessarily where they've lived for years. And currently in those slums, close to 20% of the girls, either even if they completed high school, primary school, they have challenges joining high school or even other higher levels of education. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, so then I share our mission. We advance education, health, and socioeconomic opportunities that empower adolescents and youth in the informal settlements through capacity building, referrals, and linkages. And we do a lot of advocacy as well. So that is really like what our mission is at Hope for Kenya Slum Adolescent Initiative. Next slide. Yeah, and we are grateful. That is, of course, an understatement, but we really appreciate our partnership with Population Connection that for the past 2 years has funded our programs, and specifically our education program, Hope Through Education Empowerment Program, that are supported and contributed to increased rates of enrollment, retention, and graduation from institutions of higher learning. And that involves, includes high school, as well as in the TVETs or colleges, where now girls who had either dropped out of school, had either completed primary school, but had no hope of joining a secondary school or high school, have the opportunity of joining a higher level of education because of, or rather courtesy of the support that we receive from Population Connection. Next slide. Yeah, so our work basically is around financial investment, as I mentioned, this is where now we support our girls to get opportunity to advance their education. And these are girls actually who would otherwise never enter a higher level of education or high school, or even acquire any skills post their primary education. Among them, of course, are women, young women, who either completed primary, lost their parents, they're now in the informal setting, or who just passed the exams well, but they didn't have someone else to support them. And so they thought they didn't need to go or to further their education. And also, so then of course, what happens after one drops out of school or has no opportunity or hope of joining a higher level of education is they start engaging into many other things, and most so for women, they become more vulnerable in the informal settings than as compared to their counterparts in other settings. So the support that we receive from Population Connection has been able to support our girls transition from primary school to high school, and then also support some of them to start the small businesses that have been able to economically empower them to support their families and support their children. The other thing that we do actually is mentorship. Under mentorship, we have opportunity to bring together young women and just catalyze spaces and opportunities for them to build long-term support systems for themselves, being able to speak for themselves, being able to articulate their issues, especially when it comes to gender equality in their settings. So they have they can now see life, they can advocate for themselves, they understand the issues better, and they can now talk about them and make their voices heard. The other thing we also do is capacity building, and this we do, of course, with both the young girls as well as communities or community members that also include, like recently we had a champions training, just being able to strengthen the voices and agency of girls and women, igniting their passion and creating spaces for them to champion for their issues. So really like today we are integrating SRH and climate change in our current project. And one of the things that girls now have to understand is that the relationship between climate change and their lives in the informal settings, what it means when they cannot control their fertility, what it means when they cannot take care of the environment, what it means when, say, their calamities, like when it's flooding, when there's drought, what they need to do, because they are most impacted as compared to other people or their counterparts or adolescents and young people outside the slums. So really important, helping them understand the need for them to postpone a pregnancy or to take care, to space their births, because of how then they will be impacted or how they're likely to be impacted by the effects of climate crisis. And of course, we do a lot of advocacy, as I mentioned earlier, and feminist movement building. We work with other organizations, just being able to understand what we need to do to strengthen our advocacy in the space, and ensuring that women and girls can have their space and being passionate about the issues that they need to speak against in the communities. And additionally, we actually also conduct community focused groups where we bring community members and leaders to the table just to help them understand the need for them to support women and girls in the informal settings, and specifically when it comes to access to resources, as much as little the resources might be, but it's really important to help them understand that for us to achieve gender equality, we must involve all the people, including the young people, the girls, and the women in their informal settings. Next slide. Yeah, so our impact in the past 2 years, this is our 3rd year. We just started a month ago or 2 months ago for our implementation in the 3rd year. But basically, we have so far seen a transition from primary school to high school of about 25 adolescents who are currently, when you look at their photos and listen to their stories, you will see a tremendous transition and just the love for the work that we do. Young people have just embraced that. And for those that we have supported, they have not failed us. They have been performing so well, and we're hoping they will transition even to universities after they complete their 4th year in high school. We have graduated close to 77 young women from TVET. TVET is the technical and vocational training institutions where they have acquired several different skills depending again on their passion. So this is something that creates opportunities for them in the job market. And some of them end up even starting their own businesses. So this has really been a transformation. We see someone who had lost hope after they completed high school or after they dropped out of high school. But then after undergoing this training or course, we see very bright and happy young women who are ready to now take up jobs and support their families, support their children, and just see them economically empowered after that. Then we have currently 7 individuals we supported with small grants to start businesses. These have also been able to do well, and we hope that with availability of resources, we can support even more so that we have people, even though women who cannot go back to school and feel like they have a lot of burden, they have a lot of responsibilities as mothers, but they can do something with their skill and with their talent in business and with the business entrepreneurial mind, just being able to support their children. We have reached close to 1,500 adolescent girls and young mothers through our mentorship program. And this, of course, as I said, has given them a voice, being able to now stand on their own as empowered young people and speak about the issues that are at the core, and also just being able to express themselves, to show the kind of like maturity and what do I say? We have seen situations where women have always waited for someone to make decisions for them, but now we are mentoring young adolescent people and young women to just be able to make decisions, even in their families, being able to speak about their issues, even directly with their, key policymakers, being present at the table to air their issues and just make their voices heard. We have also been able to reach close to 1,200 community members whom we sensitize on gender issues, including SRH. As we know currently in Kenya, even just discussing sexuality education in our schools is very hard. But now when we go through the community members, it is even easier for them to start sharing this information and even involving the young ones whenever they come back from school, even in the religious institutions, being able to make it easier for them to discuss issues around SRH. And we also have, of course, through that, partnered with different institutions, including religious institutions, just to have spaces for us to engage young people whenever they're on holiday or during even church and church services or Muslim, wherever. Next slide, Stephanie. Yay, I love this smile. So this is not her, but look at these 2 photos. So this is the situation we get our young girls from primary school. This girl has just completed her primary school and she's just wondering whether she will ever go to school again to continue with her education. But you see, once we take them up and we assure them of our support, what we have done is, what we do actually is we pay for their tuition fees for the entire year. So then when you look at the second girl on my right, she's now all smiles, assured of being in school. The environment has changed. She now knows how to even make a tie, you know, and she's just so smart. This smile makes me smile every time I see this girl. And she's not just one. Of course, I wouldn't put all the photos of the girls and show their transformation, but this is what I see, and this is what fulfills my heart. This is really fulfilling. I rather see a girl smile than be seated with a policymaker or a politician and wait to be asking for handouts. Thank you, Population Connection, for putting a smile on the face of young girls like her. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we also provide funding to young girls like the girl on my left, who is basically receiving a check to join a technical training institute. So this is another area that we have really supported. More than 77 girls today in 2 years being able to graduate from TVET, and it all smiles again. These are girls who are struggling with early teenage pregnancies and forced marriages. And you can see we are all inclusive. So you see the Muslim community, women from the Muslim community, and they are all happy to see us doing the work that we do. And in a few months or a year, this girl will have transformed. It's this in the middle, HKSAI staff has the checks, just handing them over to guardians and the girls themselves during this meeting. So again, from here, it's expected that they will either join the job market or they will start their own businesses. That way, then they will be empowered. And so really, the work that we do resonates with this year's theme, that invest in women. Let's accelerate progress, and progress in terms of ending gender inequality. So I am so honored to have been a recipient of Population Connections funding or support, just to see young women actually transform and become economically empowered. Thank you so much, Population Connection. Next slide. Stephanie, are you still there? Yay, graduation. So we have, as I mentioned, seen several graduates since 2022, and this is what it looks like. It's just amazing. Look at the smiles on their faces. So really another good impact and a result of what really our work and the support that we receive from Population Connection is doing. Next slide. Yes, this one is just a recent one. We had a capacity building session. So apart from just paying tuition fees directly, we do a lot of mentorship and capacity building. So this is a training we conducted just last weekend, like just giving young women a voice, helping them understand that they need to catalyze the spaces where they are or where they live, so to be able to build long-term relations with the communities. And particularly for this training, we were sensitizing them on how to relate SRH and climate crises or climate challenges, because currently that is the thing we live in, and we cannot run away from the impacts of climate change. And so it's really important that we engage and even train champions, young people or young women who will now go back to their communities and start empowering their community members, empowering their peers, enabling them understand why we are saying that overpopulation impacts or rather contributes to what we are seeing today, and also helping them understand what happens and why they need to take care of their environment and avoid just dumping garbage in water sources, being able to mitigate the impacts of the climate crisis. So this specific capacity building training was to help get champions or catalyze champions for that particular purpose, and being able to understand also why they should also champion for controlled or rather spacing families, and also helping other women understand that they have a voice. They must also have decision-making power at the table, or even in the families where they live or where they come from. Next slide. Yeah, this is one of those mentorship sessions. We have the young girls and women coming together to understand the issues around them, helping them really become the women they should be. So again, the messaging here is, you as a woman, you must be empowered. You need to understand issues around SRH, why you should postpone a pregnancy, why you should use a contraceptive if you really have to have sex, and why you should, seek help whenever you need help, and why they should aspire to get an education, to be economically empowered, and all that. Next slide. Yeah, and this is one of those community engagement or community dialogue forums where we are now engaging communities as HKSAI, and you can see it's also an inclusive gathering. We have all people from all for families, from all religions, coming to engage on issues around SRH and climate issues, and also on gender equality. And again, the next slide basically is just an additional photo of our members. Like, our team has had a community engagement forum, and they post for a very nice photo. Look at those faces, people who are really happy about what Population Connection is doing, and even consenting to their photos being taken, and happy because of the support that either their children have received or the children from their community have received. And this is really encouraging, just being able to bring people together to appreciate the work that you do. So we really appreciate and are humbled at the support that we receive from Population Connection. If you go to the last, is it last but not least slide, Stephanie? Oh, so this is what I envision, a community learning center for our young women, and especially if we can, from the photo I showed earlier, we looked at the number of slums in Nairobi. I'm just envisioning a center where we will bring all these women, and girls and young women, to acquire their skills from here, with different skills being taught, and even having a space for their babies during the training, and supporting them in other ways, like having maybe food for them. It is a big dream, but I say I'd rather dream big than dream small, because all dreams are valid. as someone said. So yeah, this is what I envision. And I'm glad and happy and appreciate every support that I have received previously. And I look forward to future support again from everywhere else, wherever it will come from. I know I have a dream. I have a dream to have this center where our girls can acquire their education. I think that is it. I'm so humbled that we were able to join the call and just listen in. So if you want to engage with HKSAI, please go to our website. On our website, you'll find the donate button. If you wish to donate, that particular donation is specifically going to contribute towards that center I have projected earlier. I am hoping to raise 70,000 USDs to set up that center. If you go to our Facebook page, please like, please follow our Instagram and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening in today, and I look forward to our future partnerships.
Thank you so much, Melvine. That was a wonderful presentation. It's so great to learn more about this initiative of yours. And thanks also for including so many different photos for us to get a better idea of, you know, some context into what the programs that you're talking about and where and who and what it all looks like. It's really valuable. Thank you so much. All right, I have a few pre-submitted questions that I'm going to start off with, but as usual, if any of you have questions that you'd like Melvine to answer live, please feel free to voice them in the chat, and Stephanie and I will filter them through and try to get to as many as we have time for today. So the first question, Melvine, you've talked a lot about the initiatives that you're running throughout Kenya and the difference they're making in communities. But I'm wondering if you could just give a little bit of context into what this sort of social systems and situation is like in Kenya. What are the norms surrounding gender equality, for example, or the expectations put upon women and girls? What are the sort of norms around fertility? What are family sizes like? And how are your programs contributing to a difference here?
Thank you, Hannah, for that question. Currently, I think we have done better, or we have done well in terms of reducing our fertility. I think currently we are at our fertility rate is at 3.4 children per woman, and that is a decline from 3.9 in 2014. So basically, I think my grandmother and my mother grew up knowing that women were just meant to give birth and to take care of children in the homes, something that is now changing. That is, I'll say currently in a few households or in a few communities in Kenya, because I know there is still a community that believes that women should just be at home for childbearing. I don't want to mention, but I know the Muslim community, not all, but still that's where we still see that mentality of women should just be home, take care of the children, take care of the home. And then like women should be married, like encouraging polygamy so that they'll have more children in the homes. There are communities in Kenya where women still go through female genital mutilation, and that is something that's really impacting negatively on the lives of girls and women in Kenya. I know there are, of course, initiatives that are working to end FGM, but that's still a huge thing in some of the communities in Samburu, Maasai, and that, of course, impacts negatively on women in a way that those girls, after that cut, they are married off. or rather, they will be having someone ready to marry them after they have undergone FGM, which starts way like early as 10 years. And that is not just even in Kenya, but even in some of the countries in Africa. I was sharing recently with Tony Olale, who has been working with women to end FGM. And he's traveled as far as Sierra Leone. He was telling me how women are carrying girls small girls as young as 10, to the mountains and the forests to have them get the cut, simply because they do not want to run away from their culture, something that they're used to. And in that conversation, he says, even the men are now complaining because it's women who are forcing girls to get the cut. And this is something we've also had someone traveling from the US to bring their daughters and bring their families to Kenya to get cut, to have the girls go through FGM. A culture and a tradition that people are not ready to let go. So that is another thing that is negatively impacting on women and girls. Because as I said, if they have undergone the cut, they're now married off to a Moran, who then must force them to get babies and start childbearing and start taking care of children. That will mean they will abandon their education in order to take care of families and start childbearing. The other thing is, even currently, as much as our laws like demand that we should have a 3% like representation of women, that is not still the case. Men are still domineering our political space. And women have said, every woman in that political space has said it's really hard being in that space because they have to undergo lots of abuse, including sexual abuse, for them to be able to survive that space. So that is something that is, again, we are still struggling with in Kenya. And so those are issues that we are still struggling with. But I want to say that in terms of fertility rate, because of what is currently happening, especially in the urban settings, women have postponed pregnancies or have limited the number of children because of maybe education. They want to get an education. They want to get, because you can't get a job if you have no education, unfortunately. And again, looking at the high levels of unemployment in the urban settings, women have to struggle to postpone pregnancy so they can get an education. And then that will definitely has definitely contributed to the low birth rate or fertility rates in the urban setting, which is totally, again, different from what we see in the rural. But I'll say we have made progress in terms of that. I don't know if I've answered your question, Hannah, but I guess.
Yes, no, that's perfect. Thank you so much. It was a really comprehensive answer, and I appreciate you going into such detail and talking about the just intricacies of the dynamics at play at the macro level all the way down to the micro and the familial levels. So I'm also interested to know how this organization kind of collaborates more broadly with like local communities and governments and other stakeholders to ensure the success of its educational initiatives. Like, what is the dynamic between your organization and local municipalities or the government? And are you receiving help? Do they act as barriers, or what are the dynamics at play, and what are the kind of future prospects that you see in terms of collaboration?
Thank you so much. That is actually a very important question for us to understand. So I'll say Hope for Kenya Slum has been really working in collaboration with different stakeholders. And of course, remember, we are working with young people. Young people in Kenya actually make close to 70% of our population. And so every other stakeholder will be really interested in getting the support they can get to see us really take care of this young population. So we have collaborated with other NGOs and community-based organizations in different ways. Like say, I remember if we have to conduct a girl summit, this is when we are celebrating the Day of the Girl Child. We come together as different stakeholders, just pulling resources together to bring women and girls, or young women and girls and other youth to come and celebrate this day with the young people. So like last year, we collaborated, I think, with close to 20 organizations. We brought our young people from Kisumu, Mombasa, all over the country to come celebrate this day at the University of Nairobi. So that means that we brought resources from our various organizations to do that. At the community level, of course, because of even community entry, before you get to work in a community, you must bring on board community leaders and the gatekeepers, the people within the community, because they have been very, they will be very instrumental in even helping you identify the gaps that you need to support. Otherwise, you will even not know who is really in need of what you're doing or the support that you want to provide. So we've worked closely with gatekeepers and community leaders to help us identify the correct girls and even accept us as an organization to work in their community, and being able to bring young people together. We have benefited from venues like at the community level. The chiefs give us an office for an activity and even help us in mobilizing the community members to come together for a forum. And just remembering that we are working in the informal, who are not a member in that community. So for you to be safe, you must work with the community members and community leaders to even carry out activities. Some of the government capitation, where they pay a certain amount that then we leverage on by paying the remaining tuition fees. So that has happened for girls who are in high school and those who are in TVET. The government provides that. And of course, in some of the institutions that are government institutions, we have the opportunity of enjoying their infrastructure. And of course, additionally, who else do we work with? When it comes to, of course, those institutions that we work with, these are our key stakeholders and partners in this work, for them to even support us and see to it that the girls that we have admitted in these institutions go through the training until they graduate successfully. So various ways in which we have collaborated, like tomorrow on the 8th, we are joining hands together with the Nairobi County Department of Gender and several other partners coming together to celebrate women and just helping catalyze the space and enabling or rather sensitizing communities about women gender equality and women empowerment. So really, really an important aspect of our collaboration.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, it sounds like you are really well integrated, and it's really nice to hear that collaboration is existing cohesively at all of these different levels. That's wonderful. Thank you. There's a question in the chat asking just about your education program and the selection process. So how are girls who receive financial aid selected and chosen?
Thank you. That is a pertinent question. And actually, when we started the program, that was our major problem. I mean, challenge. We were wondering, how will we do this? And then what happened is when I registered the organization at the NGO board, I was given permission to operate in 4 counties that are really like in different corners or regions of Kenya. So what we did, we identified peers, or rather volunteers, in the different communities. So these volunteers work closely with the chiefs and rather the community leaders in those specific slums. So we identified people who have been in the slum. Most of them grew up in those slums, and so they know the slums. No, this thing is hell. I am for hell.
Melvine, are you still there?
Yes. Oh, I'm there. Sorry, I thought
Yeah.
my internet. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and
Okay.
see you. Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, as I mentioned, so these young people have grown in the slums, in those specific slums, and they understand the people, they understand the leadership in the slum. So they go through their leaders to help them identify needy households. So at some point in Kenya, we had what we call nyumba kumi in Swahili, meaning translated as 10 households. So 10 household meaning you will be taking care of the 10 household, like you know who is within the 10 households, you know? So these people know exactly where they live. They know the people who live where. They know which house sleeps hungry. They know which house needs help with clothing. They know which house has many children that need a support for education. So in our selection process, we go through our volunteers who go through their leaders in the community. Then we follow up. Our program officer will go to the community with the volunteer and do an assessment. We have an assessment tool where we now evaluate each candidate. We evaluate to assess eligibility. Then from there, we can be able to admit them into a program and now follow up with their guardians or with the people that are taking care of them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. There's another
Thank you,
question
Hannah.
here. Yeah, just asking about education. And I assume that a lot of girls and women and even boys and men as well are going abroad to receive education in different places. And so the question is asking about whenever they return, what is the integration process like, assuming that they may be bringing different ideas and kind of theories about life and how they want to live it into these communities. How is the like assimilation process there, and what are the dynamics like? Or are a lot of the people who are leaving staying abroad, and how is that affecting the dynamics within communities?
That question, that's a nice question, Hannah. Thank you. And I'll say this, maybe from an individual experience. It is not easy for scholars returning home. And I guess the reason why many scholars choose not to come back. There will be lots of resistance, right? Even from the households, even from the very families where people came from the communities, from the churches. I recently interacted with Eve HKSAI. Eve HKSAI was in Canada and returned home. It's from Maas Island, Kajiado. When she returned home, what she told me was, it was really hard for her to integrate or get back into the community, even though she returned with ideas and support, and she had a donor who was ready to support her work. But the kind of resistance she met on arrival in the community was really harsh. And that is not just for her. That applies to most of the people who come back. I'd say the only difference, or the only people who may integrate easily are the people who, I guess, yes, people who left for higher education and previously worked or were civil servants, worked with the government. I think for them it's easier because you turn back to the government and you keep doing the same work. But for some of us, it was really bad. And for me, I think I'll say it has affected me to date. Were it not that I had this kind of support from Population Connection and just being able to believe in my vision to support me, I think it can really be hard because you face resistance from people who are scared, or rather, who are scared of your academics or your achievement, and they do not want to be like, it's a funny situation, Hannah. It's not an easy one. It's not easy. I'll say, please understand, it's not easy. Some of them have to go through abuse and many other things. But again, I thank God for our very last session I had in the Kennedy School with a leadership professor who prepared us. As you go back, you will meet resistance, you will meet different people, you'll be telling you different things, people who will not want to see, who will not want to see you as someone who has as an achiever. And the reason I tell myself I am still valued, even though some people feel like they want to be more superior to me and not acknowledge that I am senior to them. I believe, it's not easy. Let me just leave it there. It's not easy to integrate back. And I appreciate and commend people who have come back and started the initiative just to support communities.
Yes, thank you so much. That's a really good point. And I'm glad that this question was brought up in the chat because, it takes a real amount of bravery to come back and to introduce new ideas into communities that are not necessarily open to receiving them. So it speaks to the importance of the work that you're doing, Melvine, and people like you for really shifting these paradigms and norms. All right, so we're right at the hour. Actually, I was just gonna ask the last question about what you're most excited about in the upcoming year for this organization, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, as a wrap up, I think I'm most excited because we have a new program and project integrating climate change within our work, and how educating our young girls contributes to rather mitigation to, how our program contributes to climate change mitigation. I'm really excited that we have something new that we are integrating within our activities, and I just look forward to what the future looks for young people. As I said earlier, mine is just to help get an inspired youth who can be able to lead independent, dignified, and healthy lives. So I'm sure the year ahead will bring a lot of young people who are inspired to live healthy lives. So
Absolutely.
grateful and thankful to Population Connection. And so together, let's empower our women for a better and equal and inclusive world. Thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity to share my work with you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. It was, again, very, very useful and interesting information. And I'm just so happy always to get to hear from you and learn about the amazing work that's being done throughout Kenya. So that's a perfect way to end it. And thanks everyone for joining today. We really appreciate your participation as always. And please stay tuned for a recording of the presentation along with answers to some of the questions that were pre-submitted but weren't answered live today. We will follow up via email with all of that. And with that, we will let you go. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.